The Vex started this column during their first takeover attempt in the late Golden Age. They were stopped, but at enormous cost. Braytech's top engineers studied structures like this one for years, but they never grasped how the Vex defied the laws of nature so neatly. Vex constructions uniformly resist natural law, even entropy itself. No one, not even Clovis Bray, has figured out how. As you can see here, on Nessus, wherever they go, the Vex are quick to remake their surroundings in their own image. This unfinished column was proof that we'd stopped the Vex years ago. Now, thanks to Aramis, they may yet finish their work. This structure dates back to the late Golden Age, the Vex-Exo War. If history were just, it would be known as Bray's Folly. You know of the Ishtar Collective. Clovis Bray also tried to crack open the secrets of the Vex. Proof of his failure stands before you. Just because humanity discovered the Vex on Venus first, doesn't mean that was their only entry point. Clovis Bray built a door for them here, too. The history of the Vex is nigh on impossible to track, given their manipulations of time. But I was here when they first came to Europa. This structure is incomplete. The Vex only stop when they themselves are stopped. We learned that the hard way, during the war. European bacteria is preserved in the ice. A small colony compared to what's floating in the ocean beneath your feet. That red glow is a natural occurrence. Comes from some combination of native bacteria and the radiated atmosphere. One of Europa's natural phenomena. The only kind Clovis didn't care about. He couldn't make use of red ice. Red ice is common here and perfectly harmless, though from the long view, Europa looks like it's been scratched by giant claws. To say Europa presented an architectural challenge is putting it mildly. What these roofs can withstand is an engineering miracle. Gale force winds, kilotons of snow and ice, radiation bombardments, and still, centuries later, this roof stands intact. That paint job had a use beyond aesthetics. All the buildings were painted so they could be seen even in a whiteout. The European construction was Braytech's most expensive project by far. But it paid off, centuries later and still intact. Expedition rovers, Braytech employees, many were sacrificed to the study of this ravine. Not that Clovis Bray cared. Chasms like these crisscross all over this moon, allowing radioactive ions to flow into the depths of its dark ocean. The entrance to Europa's ocean lies at the bottom of the abyss, 25 kilometers straight down. Braytech researchers dropped a camera down there once. You wouldn't believe what they saw swimming around in the dark. This abyss reaches Europa's subsurface ocean. A Braytech camera still floats down there, amongst Arctic plankton and bacterial colonies. Eventide required an enormous amount of fuel to stay up and running, but it paled in comparison to the Exo factory. Fuel was a precious resource on Europa. Clovis and I argued over it constantly. He won in the end, and the people of Eventide suffered for it. These fuel tanks were our emergency reserves, which Clovis drained for his research trips. So when an emergency came, well... These tanks once held fuel, for Eventide. But Clovis prioritized research over human lives. When people needed them most, they were empty. Fuel reserves. I insisted, in case we needed to evacuate, which we might have done, if Clovis hadn't wasted it all. Looks like House Salvation has tucked away some ether for a rainy day. We should keep careful track of these. The Fallen may have knocked their servitors down a peg, but they still need a steady stream of ether. Hence, the hidden caches. A House Salvation ether cache. Even the darkness isn't enough to keep them alive, much as they wish otherwise. Ether stores for House Salvation. Hold off on destroying them for now. We can be strategic about this. House Salvation may disdain their servitors, but they still need ether. I'll make a note. We can use this to our advantage. All exoscience computers were routinely wiped clean of incriminating data, but traces may linger deep in the hardware. This is where they conducted exo-stress tests, exposing us to extreme temperatures, radiation, direct bomb blasts. An old exoscience computer. This one is fried, but there were a lot of these stations. We can still find one with data left on it. I tried to erase all evidence of the Exo project once. I never thought I'd be happy I failed, but... well, I've changed my mind about a lot since then. Looks like the Fallen have repurposed some Braytech leftovers. Perhaps I can find a back door into their comms. The Fallen are thrifty, I'll give them that. These towers have Braytech parts in them. Good to know. A lot of outgoing transmissions calling for the Fallen to join House Salvation. Reminds me of how Braytech used to recruit. House Salvation has made a real effort to blast their propaganda far and wide. It's good to know where the transmissions are coming from. This must be why I've been picking up so many House Salvation transmissions. They're getting desperate for recruits.